Hi everyone, my name is John Faulkes and you're welcome to this recorded version of a webinar I ran for PTI in September 2017. I'm going to talk about why this is important, concerns we hear from sponsors about people's performance. Secondly, what in general enhances performance. And thirdly, and specifically, the effect of typical partnership contracts on performance. And finally, practical tips that may help. It's about 15 to 20 minutes, and afterwards I welcome your contacts and your questions. So, first of all, let's talk about why this topic is important and illustrate it with problems sponsors complain about when running clinical trials or in alliances with partners. You may know that there is a huge lack of efficiency in clinical trials worldwide. This doesn't mean that they fail, but that larger and larger amounts of money and time are spent completing them compared to the original budgets. Partnerships such as research alliances are generally a little bit more efficient, but as is well known, at least 50% do not achieve the goals they set out to, or relationships break down. There are many reasons for this, but one particular thing relevant to this presentation is that these are complex exercises, and to overcome many of the challenges and unexpected things that go wrong, without having unlimited resources, we need all players to be highly motivated and perform at their best to make them work. Consistently, however, we hear from sponsors, those commissioning and paying for the work, that often doesn't happen. So it's understandable that we try and take control over some of the factors that cause these problems. Well, here are the factors. I've placed them in this diagram, shown against a notional scale of our typical ability to deal with them. Some of those at the very bottom are intrinsic scientific uncertainties that we accept, but many of the others we aim to tackle. Now, my argument is that we can put a little bit too much effort into using a detailed contract to resolve these problems. Also, sponsors tend to be most comfortable with things that are easily definable and measurable, especially in terms of processes, time and money. So contracts usually focus on the areas I've outlined. And even something such as risk planning, which is fairly process orientated, we often find only partly addressed. So, if we are going to address the softer aspects of performance and motivation, how can we do that? Well, you may have seen this model. It's called Maslow's hierarchy, with a few modern updates from me. It explains that there are many needs that people have, and they will make effort and work hard to satisfy them. As we move up from the bottom, we see that the first three are frequently addressed within the workplace: getting salary increases, having a nice place to work, social facilities, promotions, and so on. Typically with these, they cost money, but they do tend to make temporary uplifts in motivation, but that need to be repeated over time. Those at the top are slightly different. People respond to being connected with the overall purpose of the work they're doing. Also, they look for opportunities to learn and to become experts. They are turned on by achieving things, and they respond to being given responsibility, meaning the authority to make their own decisions for the work they do. These things are generally more powerful motivators. They don't tend to cost money, but those in charge generally have to give up some time and some of its control to make them happen. They can, however, make permanent, positive changes to people's performance. So, any organisation that you deal with is going to have people that display different levels of performance and are motivated by different aspects of the factors here. Now, this is a well-known analysis model classifying people according to, firstly, their level of skill and experience that they have, and secondly, their attitude or their alignment to your own vision and values. What helps a really top performer is to be empowered to get on with work themselves. Some people need to be engaged, which means connecting them more with the overall purpose of their work. Obviously, some will need training, they need to learn. Now, this model also advocates that the worst performers should be removed. But more importantly, if I add in some of the motivating strategies from the previous graphic that you saw, these are precisely the things that we have at our disposal to get the very best out of a group of people. So, let's now look at some of the problems that the traditional contract that I've described might cause for us. Let's start with an uncomfortable reality. Some things that make perfect common sense to sponsors are not necessarily perceived particularly well by their partners. These are all examples we've seen that are quantified and drafted into contracts that will be presented to partners. But let's see how they might be received. The partner may have many years' valuable experience and could help you draft a plan that would be more effective and realistic than the one you make on your own. A partner may feel that what you're proposing in the contract is impossible, but they're under pressure to get the business, so they agree. But you may not listen to their ideas until it's too late. We often set optimistic targets, even if experience tells us it may be foolish, and then set them in stone, rather than having a realistic contingency plan for if things go wrong. And sponsors can be oversensitive about retaining the original partner team, when that's often unrealistic over a long study program. If you recall this motivational model, we can see what effect certain things in a contract may have. If sponsors ensure that every single decision is taken by themselves, then this is going to have a major effect on a key motivator. Not sharing the full picture with a partner will compromise a second and a third key motivator. Drafting a complex, detailed contract and then just requiring the partner to accept and sign it can damage even more of the motivational factors. And sealing a deal based on the most over-optimistic costs and timings may engender the feeling in the partner that there's nothing they can do to succeed. Well, so faced with all these challenges, is there anything we can do to achieve better deals, better relationships, and more likelihood of success? Here are some tips for making it work. If possible, build the contract together with a partner. Try and make it as realistic and achievable as possible. Don't specify the plans to an immense level of detail. Focus more on how you'll develop an efficient relationship and build trust. Ask your partner to risk assess your plans and get them to present back and take on board some of their ideas about contingency planning. Brainstorm with them. They might just end up saving you time or money and be a more engaged team. But things will always go wrong. Build processes in advance, ready to help you learn jointly and make proper fixes. And note one really common problem. It's often poor communication and arguments between internal managers that sabotages a project. One last crucial tip is to be careful about what you measure. Contracts rightly and understandably contain measurement metrics, and of course most of these are based on the deliverables of the project, timelines and spend. They're sometimes called lagging measures because they measure what happens in the past. But just as effective are so-called leading measures, which assess a partnership's capability to deliver in future. These are not so easy to establish, and you may need help to use these types of metrics, but in the end they are just as, if not far more valuable. Well, I hope you found this presentation interesting and useful. Do get in touch with me if you want to discuss anything further. Thanks.